The date is Friday, December the 19th, 2014. The location is the Yankee Air Museum in Belleville, Michigan. The time is 1 p.m. The person being interviewed is Mario Montressor. Mario was born on November the 17th, 1921, and Mario served in the U.S. Army Air Force in the 8th Air Force during World War II. This interview will be conducted by Daniel Mihal. Also present are his wife Betty, his son Keith, his nephew Philip Mills, Michelle Montressor, and Lanny Mills. And Mario, can you tell us where you were born?
Where?
Where, yes.
Seminole, Pennsylvania.
And what were your parents' names?
My dad's name was Joseph, and my mother's name was Guarina.
And did you have any brothers and sisters?
Oh yes, I had a sister Lena and a brother Ferdinand.
Did your father serve in the military in World War I?
In Italy.
In Italy? And what did your father do for a living?
He was a coal miner, and then he became a waiter.
Okay. And did your mother work outside the house?
Oh yeah.
What did she do?
It was just my mother and I, and she did housework, she did factory work, anything that she could find.
Okay. Now you said your father was a coal miner. Where did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
Well, this was in Pennsylvania, around Pittsburgh.
Okay. And did you stay in one town, or did you move from place to place?
Oh, we moved all over.
And did your family follow your father as he moved? I mean, did you move with your father?
No. Just after a while, just my mother and I.
Okay. So, but you did do some moving initially when your father went from place to place.
Yeah.
What was it like moving from town to town when you were a child?
Well, I don't really remember
Okay.
too much.
Do you have any special memories of that time?
No.
And where did you go to high school? What
New York
city?
City.
New York City. And how did you end up in New York City after living in Pennsylvania? How did you end up in New York City after living in Pennsylvania? Did your mother and you just move there?
I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
And what was the name of the high school you attended?
Oh boy. Straubenmuller Textile High School.
That's an unusual name. What was that? Was that a type of vocational or a technical high school?
It was a technical high school.
And do you have any special memories of going to high school?
No.
Did you have any favorite classes in high school?
No. Recess.
And what year did you graduate high school?
1939.
Now, growing up in New York, did you have any favorite sports teams in New York?
No.
And your given name is Mario, but you had a nickname. What was your nickname?
Well, I mean, certain names I can't do and can't say in public. Monty, mostly.
Okay. And after high school, what did you do? What did you do after high school?
I went to work
Where did you work?
in a machine shop in New York City.
And how much were you making?
13 cents an hour.
And then how long did you stay in New York doing that?
Not very long, because my aunt lived here in Detroit. She says, come here to Detroit and work at Ford's and get $1.60 an hour. I couldn't get here quick enough.
So what type of job did you have in Detroit then when you got here?
Production work at a Ford Motor Company.
Were you working at the Rouge plant or?
Right.
And do you have any memories of when Pearl Harbor was attacked? Do you have any memories of that day?
Very vague. I remember it, but it didn't really make that much of an impression on me because it's just something that happened.
Okay. And what year did you enter the service, the military service?
1943. January 1943.
Now, were you drafted before 1943 or no?
Oh, wait a minute. I was supposed to report in 1942 November, but then my mother was sick.
Okay,
So then I got a 3 months or 2 months, whatever it was, delay.
okay. And after you were drafted, where did you first go into the service? What camp did you go to?
Oh, it was terrible, Miami Beach, Florida.
Well, I thought you went to basic, yeah, that was basic, but didn't you go,
Yeah.
you mustered in somewhere in Michigan, didn't you?
Camp Custer.
Okay. And that's located outside of Battle Creek?
Yeah.
Is that correct? So then for basic training, you went to Miami Beach then?
Yes.
And when did you arrive in Miami Beach?
When?
When, yes.
I don't know.
Sometime in 43?
It was winter time because we left Custer with our heavy woolen uniform. We got to Miami Beach and they were all wearing khakis.
Okay. Do you remember the name of the base in Miami Beach? The base where you were going through basic training?
Yeah, Miami Beach.
Oh, it was? Okay. Do you have any memories of basic training?
I'm sorry.
Do you have any memories of basic training?
Well, I remember it, yes.
What were the conditions like?
Oh, very good.
And after basic training, what was your next training that you had?
I went to Aerial Gunnery School at Fort Myers, Florida.
Can you describe the gunnery school, like how you trained? Did they have you shooting at moving targets or?
Oh, I loved it. Oh yeah, they put us in a plane with a couple of machine guns and they said, shoot at the waves, shoot at the birds, shoot anything. I loved it.
And how long, do you remember how long the gunnery training was? How long it took?
Not very long, not very long.
And what were the living conditions similar to Miami, or were they good conditions? Or?
Oh yes, very nice.
And what was the next training that you went to?
I think from there, I'm not sure, but I think I went to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to radio school.
Okay. And what memories do you have of the radio school, of the training that you did there?
Oh, I didn't like it. I didn't want it. But I had to go, so I went.
Okay. Did they have to teach you electronics, some electronics in the school?
Yeah, they tried to teach me how to fix radios, but I wasn't about to do that, so I did learn code and stuff like that. I became a radio operator in the Air Force.
Was learning Morse code difficult?
No. Oh no, very easy.
Do you remember what your speed of Morse code would have been? How fast you could have?
16, I think.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Was what we tried to keep it at. We didn't go too fast, you know.
Okay. Do you know if were you training for a particular type of airplane, like a B-17 or a B-24, or was it just in general?
We had no choice.
And do you remember how long the radio school lasted?
I really don't recall.
Okay. What were living conditions like in Sioux Falls?
Not bad, not bad.
Overall, was the food and all the training pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was actually in an army camp at Sioux Falls.
Okay. Now, your primary responsibility was as a radio operator. Why did they train you as a gunner too?
Well, I was trained as a gunner first.
Right.
And then they said, you're going to be a radio operator. I didn't want to be a radio operator. But I had no choice.
So after you completed radio school, where did you go from there? Did you get assigned to a crew?
I think so, yeah. I think we went to some air base where they were assembling crews. I forget where it was.
Well, Arizona somewhere, maybe?
No, it was up in the
Utah?
northern states.
Utah?
I forget where it was.
Okay. So when when they assigned you to a crew, you then did some additional training at that point as a crew?
Oh yeah, as a crew, we did a lot of training together.
What kind of training did you do? I mean, like formation flying or?
Well, we just did our job as we were supposed to do it on a plane.
Were you training as a whole? I mean, were you assigned to a squadron at that point?
Oh yeah.
So were you training as a squadron unit then?
I don't know about that. I think we trained more as a crew.
Okay. Were they also training you on radio procedures when flying with the squadron?
Oh yeah, we learned all that.
And did you, after you got done training, did you go on leave then?
Leave?
Leave, yes.
Oh yeah, I think I went home.
You went home? How, was that about 2 weeks or so of leave? Do you remember how long?
Probably a couple of weeks, yes.
And then from there, you began your overseas deployment from after the leave?
Well, wait a minute now. You know, it's all a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, when you started to deploy overseas, where did you start in the States?
When we what?
When you started to go overseas, where did
We
you?
went overseas as a crew.
Right, but what was the starting point in the U.S. for that?
Fort Myers, Florida, I think.
Okay. So what was the path that you took to go overseas then? Do you remember
We flew from Fort Myers, Florida to Cuba, to British Guiana, to Belém, Brazil, to Natal, Brazil, to Dakar, French West Africa, to Morocco, up to England.
Okay. Did you fly as a single plane going over?
Well, yeah, one plane at a time.
Okay. And what were your duties as operator as you were going overseas? What did you have to do as a radio operator as you were crossing all the ocean and everything?
Not much, really. The pilot did all of that. I monitored the radio, but I really didn't do that much.
Okay. What was it like to fly over, especially that big jump from Natal to Africa, flying over all that water?
It was great. I slept most of the time.
What special memories do you have of the trip over?
In Brazil, we bought these boots, Belém boots. Boy, they were nice, soft leather boots. They were great, comfortable. And we got overseas with these, and we were really hot rocks,
Yeah.
because we had these boots that we flew over from the States to England. You know?
Is that what they called mosquito boots? Is that what they called them?
I don't remember what they called them, but they were comfortable.
And do you have a memory of something that happened in Africa when you landed there?
I don't think so.
Did you buy a knife or?
Oh! When we landed in Africa, where it was, I think it was Dakar, French West Africa. 5 of us enlisted men were in this big tent, huge tent, you know, 5 of us. So, middle of the night, somebody says, "Hey, what's that?" We all had pistols, you know, and knives and all that. And someone said, "Hey, what's that?" And someone said, "I don't know." Someone shined a light on it, and there in the middle of the tent is this great big Arab, black as coal. And he reached inside his sheet there. He come out with this knife. Of course, we all looked at him and we said, "Oh, do we shoot him? Or is he going to knife us?" And he said, "What am I, a knife, Charlie?" "Oh, yeah. I still have the knife at home."
So from Africa, then you flew up to England?
Flew up to England, Morocco, and then to England.
And when you arrived in England, what field were you stationed at?
Metfield.
And do you remember about when you arrived in England?
No, I really don't.
Would have been early 43 maybe?
Oh, yeah.
And what bomb group and bomb squadron were you assigned to in England?
491st Bomb Group, 852nd Bomb Squadron.
And did your crew have a name for your plane?
Yeah. Our pilot had a buddy who was a Chinaman. And his expression was "Tong hoi, tong hoi," which meant tough situation or variations thereof. Well, so our plane got named Tong Hoi.
It's kind of an unusual name for a plane flying in Europe.
Yeah. It couldn't have been Mission of Mercy or God's Relief or something like that. It had to be Tong Hoi. Tough shit. Excuse my language.
That's okay.
We didn't like it, but our pilot was the one that got that name because he knew a Chinese pilot when he was learning to be a pilot.
You probably had to do a lot of explaining to other people in the outfit about that.
Oh yeah. We had no choice, you know. That was our name, Tong Hoi. What does it mean? Tough situation.
And do you remember when you flew your first mission?
When?
Well, yeah, the date.
Oh yeah. I remember I was flying, and I was in the Bombay. I had to sit at the edge of the Bombay and watch the bomb. And I'm flying along, all of a sudden, bang, bang, bang. Well, what the hell is that? And the aircraft fired, and I says, "What the hell am I doing here?" That's actually what I said. What in the hell am I doing here? Oh dear.
Now you would have arrived in England just around D-Day, when D-Day happened. Do you remember flying missions?
D-Day was our second mission. Yeah.
And did your squadron participate in like bombing Germany in the Normandy area? Germans in the Normandy area?
All over, yeah.
How many missions did you fly?
30, yeah. Because I was on the lead crew. We had to fly 30, everybody else had to fly 35. I don't know why, because we all suffered the same thing, but we had to fly only 30 because we were the lead crew.
Okay.
Go figure.
Now, when you watch old movies and they always have the briefings that the pilots go through before every mission, was there a briefing for the radio operators too? I mean, did they tell?
Not really. Not really. We were told what our frequencies were and all that, but we sat in with the regular meetings.
Now, the way those old transmitters were set up, to change frequencies, you had to change a whole unit in and out, correct?
I never did.
But okay, so that.
Oh yeah, you had to change the whole outfit. Yeah.
So that was done by the ground crew then, and
Oh,
all set up.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't about to go changing any radio up there. Or they're shooting in my butt up there, and they're shooting in my butt, trying to knock me out of the air, and I'm gonna fiddle around with a radio? Forgive me.
What would be the radio operator's duties on a typical mission? What were your duties?
I was supposed to receive any messages that the pilot didn't receive from headquarters. In other words, some other headquarters above ours wanted to communicate with us. They would communicate with us, and then they would relay messages to me, and then I relay these messages to the pilot. Yeah.
So there, on the B-24, there was actually two kinds of radios, command and liaison.
Yeah, that's one I sat at.
You sat at the liaison one. Did you have any responsibilities for the command set at all?
No.
Okay. What was the difference between the two? Do you remember?
No.
Now, I did some investigating on the internet, and I read that your bomb squadron flew missions to Berlin, Hamburg, Kassel, Cologne, Liefeld, Hanover, and Magdeburg. Do you have any memories of any of those missions?
I remember some of them. I don't remember Berlin. Berlin was just a, what do you call it? It wasn't really a priority mission. It was just
It also said that your squadron bombed the German general staff at Zossen, Germany. Do you remember that?
I don't remember, no.
What would be a typical altitude that you would fly at for a mission?
About 24,000 feet.
That'd be pretty cold at that.
Oh, freezing.
Those planes were kind of drafty too, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely.
So flying at that type of altitude, you probably didn't see a lot of machine gun flak. It was all the big stuff that they were shooting at you.
Oh yeah.
What was it like?
Terrible.
What was it like flying through flak?
Terrifying.
Did it shake the plane a lot?
I wanted to jump out of the plane and run away.
Did you encounter a lot of German fighters as well?
Not too much. We had pretty much control of the air by then.
Did you have fighter escorts that flew with you?
Sometimes, yeah.
Do you remember the kind of planes that they were?
P-51s, our little buddies. Little friends.
And at that altitude, the guys had the heated suits on too?
We had heated suits. First we had the fur-lined suits, which I really liked. Then they took those away and they gave us electric heated suits. Well, the heated suit was all right. Your parachute was tight here and here. You'd be burning here and your hands and feet would be freezing, because if you turned the rheostat up to heat your feet, you'd be burning in here and here where everything was tight across your body. And no happy medium. Terrible.
Did you wear protective equipment to protect you from the flak too?
Oh yeah, we wore regular flak suit and stuff have you, yeah.
So that was over top of the heated suit?
Well, with the heated suit, oh yeah. And a couple more if they'd have given them to me.
So you guys must have looked like the Michelin Man after you got all that stuff on.
Yeah.
Now,
one time we had a helmet, and they used to everybody had a helmet, a red suit, and they put an extra helmet between a pilot and a co-pilot to relieve their bladder, because they could not leave their seats. We could walk over to the Bombay and relieve ourselves. So one time, I'm looking for my extra helmet. Where the hell's my helmet? And the co-pilot said, well, here's the extra helmet here, but we've been using it. I said, well, I'm not going to use that goddamn thing. All of a sudden, bang, 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 they started shooting at us. I grabbed that and shoved it on my head. Now, it was all right when we were up there frozen, but when it thawed out, it was a hell of a mess. I made sure after that I always had my own helmet. I said, I'm not going to use that. Bang, bang, give me that goddamn thing. Tinkle, tinkle, little star. It was all right at high altitude, but after it thawed out, it was a mess.
So what kind of damage did your plane sustain from flak, or what kind of damage did your plane sustain from flak or fighters?
Oh, holes, a lot of holes. Nothing really bad.
Now, when they opened the bomb bay doors, did you have a specific job that you had to do to?
I had to leave my radio position. I had to go sit at the edge of the bomb bay door, at the bomb bay, and there was a handle there that I had to depress to keep the bomb bay doors up, because the vibrations, they would close down. The bombardier would not be able to release his bombs. So I had to sit there and push that handle over and to keep the bomb bay doors up. So there I am, all open, shooting at me everything they had. I think they even used, what do you call them? Pea shooters. It's very scary, very scary.
What was the length of a typical mission? How long?
Oh, a long mission was about 8-9 hours. A short mission was about 4.
And when you got back to the base for debriefing, what did they do during debriefing?
They gave us a shot of whiskey, which was good. And then they asked us questions, and then we went back to camp, went to bed. Next day, went and did the same thing all over again.
Did any of your crew get wounded?
No. My co-pilot got killed, but he was flying with somebody else.
Wasn't there a bombardier or a navigator who was sitting up front that got hit in the front?
And he got a piece of flak hit him right above his mask, right here. And the navigator says, "Hey, Skipper, Mac got hit in the head here with a piece of flak." And someone said, "Put his tourniquet around his neck." Well, of course, that brought a big laugh.
When you lost the co-pilot, weren't you scheduled to go with him on that flight as well?
Yeah, he and I were supposed to fly some kind of a training thing or something. And some fella, and I was checking the plane to go, and the guy come along and says, "Damn," and I told him in operations, another radio operation, that I want to fly this because I'm going home tomorrow and I need a couple hours to get flight paid for the month. I said, "Well, I'm here already, I'm going." So he walked away, and then he come back and he says, "I'd really like to fly and get my flight paid for the month." I said, "Go ahead." I went back to the SAC. Pretty soon they came and woke me up. Asked me my name. They said, "They want to see you at operations." I thought, oh, shoot. Here's where I lose my stripes for letting somebody fly in my place. So I walked in and they said, who flew in that plane? And I said, what happened? Well, the plane crashed, they all got killed. I was back in the sack.
Your lucky day, huh?
No, it wasn't my time. Twice that happened.
Twice it happened?
Twice.
Now, you told a story about coming back from a mission and going to the mess hall and the cook complaining about doing KP.
Yeah, we were in a long mission, cold, long, cold mission, and we come back, we were cold, hungry. And this guy, he was mad because he had to stay late to feed us. And he stood there, and we said, hey, come on, fella, we want food, we're hungry, we've been on a long mission, we're hungry. Hey, don't you guys know it's tough working in a kitchen? He said to us. Nobody said a word, we just looked at him. He finally turned red as a beet and went back in the kitchen, never came back. Stupid.
Well, there were, the ground crews loaded a lot of bombs onto bombers during the war. And that was pretty dangerous work. Was there something that happened that you remember where there was an accident loading bombs?
Yes. Some of the trucks would come up to with bombs, and some of the bombs, they could kick them off the trucks. They weren't armed. Some of them, you had to carefully lay them down. Well, evidently the truck drivers didn't know what they had, and they started kicking some of these bombs, and they blew up the bomb dump.
Jeez.
Boy, yeah, it ruined about, I don't know, 6 or 8 of our planes, and we were away on the other air base in our barracks, you know. So we got on our bicycles and we ran over there to see what the noise was, and there was a big hangar up there, and another big explosion, and the big hangar doors fell down. We did a 180 degree, went back to our barracks. We didn't want to see any more.
Did you fly with the same crew for all your missions?
Oh yeah, mostly yes.
Was your pilot promoted at some point out of the crew?
Oh, he was promoted to operations officer, and then they broke up our crew. We flew with different crews, and then when my missions were done, I was done.
So you flew as a replacement crew member after that then?
I flew with different crews,
Okay.
and then when my time was done, I was done.
Now, at some point, did your crew, or did you get transferred to another bomb group?
No.
No? And after you completed your missions, all the missions, did the Air Force offer you an opportunity to stay in the Air Force?
Yeah, they asked me if I wanted to go to Japan and bomb them, and I said, go to hell, I'm going home.
Do you remember when you left England? About?
When? No, I don't.
Was the war in Europe over already when you?
I think it was just about over, yeah.
Do you remember where you were on VE Day? Were you already back on your way back home, or?
VE Day, I was in Illinois.
Oh, so
I'm being discharged.
how did you get back to the States? Did you come back? Did you fly back?
On the Liberty ship.
Do you remember the name of the ship?
We called it the Sea Scow. I don't know what it was.
How long did that take about? Do you remember?
I don't know, a week or so, I think.
Did you get seasick?
No.
What were the conditions like on the Liberty ship? Do you remember?
Conditions on the boat?
Yeah.
Not bad, crowded, but not bad.
What port did you come into?
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
And what were your duties at Fort Dix when you got there?
We didn't stay there long. From there, they sent me to out west. I forget the name. And then they sent me home for 2 weeks. And then they sent me back out west to that same camp. And then they sent me to New Jersey, and then they released me.
Do you remember how you celebrated VJ Day?
VJ?
Yeah.
Victory in Japan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was home. I was home, yeah.
Do you remember celebrating it, or?
Oh, absolutely. I went out and kissed all the girls.
What did you do after the war for a living?
I went back working at Ford Motor Company. And I didn't like that, so then I went into construction work.
Were you back at the Rouge plant again then?
Yeah.
So then you went into construction, so you're working outside?
Yeah, I like that better.
Did you do that for the rest of your, the rest of your working life, or did you do something else after the construction?
Well, I worked construction until, when? I don't know.
Okay.
Just, I got into something else, and the next thing I know, I'm working in a office.
Well, that's probably easier than construction, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when you got married?
Do I remember?
What date, what year you got married? In the 50s?
You were born in 73? 53. 53, so I got married about 50.
Okay. And then you remarried again later on, correct?
Later on, yeah.
Okay. What were your wives' names? What were your wives' names? Your first wife's name?
What was your mother's name?
Margaret?
Margaret, yeah, Margaret, yeah. And this is Betty.
And how many children do you have? One son?
I wanted more, but we can't have any more children, and she married several times and threw out a couple more. I wanted a little girl so bad.
What's your son's name?
Keith?
And do you have any thoughts that you would like to pass on to the generation that's growing up now about your experiences during the war?
I just hope that wars are a thing of the past. They're terrible, terrible, terrible.
Do you have any other thoughts that you'd like to share at this time?
No, it's just too horrible.
Well, Mario, I want to thank you. I don't have any more questions. That concludes our interview.
Okay,
Thank you so much for your time.
thank you.